Good evening to the 12th grade students, parents, and high school counselors. Thank you so much for joining us for the Knowledge at KPT Admissions 101 workshop session today. As you've seen in our outreach campaign, we have Ms. Jessie Heim, who's the Assistant Director of International Admissions at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and she would be presenting information about the session topic today, finding the best fit. And of course, you'll be getting to discover rich insight and information about the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. As you know from the outreach campaign, we will also be having a Q&A section. So please feel free to post all your questions as we go along for the day in the Q&A box and not in the chat box, so that it will be easier for Mrs. Jessie to locate all your questions, and of course, she'd be more than happy to answer them. The Q&A section will be taking place towards the end, so you may kindly feel free to post the questions as we go along. And having said that, I'm now going to hand over the stage as well as the microphone to Ms. Jessie Heim. Ms. Jessie, we know it's very early in the morning out there. Thank you so much for joining all the 12th graders, their parents, and high school counselors. And we truly appreciate your kind time and wish you the very best for the workshop section. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Kunal. Thanks for having me today. I'm very excited to be here, and good evening to all of you. Thanks for joining. As Kunal said, I am the Assistant Director of International Admissions at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, but I've been in the field for about 10 years in higher education in the United States, working with international students. So to get started, I'm just going to kind of give you an overview of what we'll discuss today. First, kind of the first portion of the presentation is all about finding the best college fit. So what are some things that you can really look at and think about just for finding any university in the United States, just because we all are so different and have lots of different things to offer, and lots of different things that are factors you should think about that maybe you haven't, as far as what will make you happy with your college experience and what will give you the most success out of your academics, and all of those kind of things that sometimes get overlooked. Then I'm going to talk about the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, where I'm located, as far as our community, location, the different academics we offer, our admissions process, scholarships and cost of attendance, and then our student life and culture. And then we will have plenty of time for Q&A at the end. As Kunal mentioned, if we can just put those in the Q&A section, I will try and get to all those questions at the end. We should definitely have plenty of time for that. So to get started here, let's just go into finding the best fit. So that is something that is so important when you're thinking about where you want to go to a college, because obviously around the world, there are thousands and thousands of different colleges you can consider. And then in the United States alone, there are thousands of different options. So there's a lot of different factors, but one of the most important, obviously, is your academics. So sometimes I see students that, just narrow where they want to go to a college based on the rankings or the popularity of an institution, or like the top 10 in the United States, without really having an understanding if those universities even have the majors that they're looking for. The United States has different institutions with different varieties of options as far as students being able to go directly into a major at an institution, or having to kind of take some time to take some general studies courses, and then deciding what they want to major after they've had a year of kind of general coursework to see what they're interested in. So this is really something that's important to think about, especially if you don't know what you want to major, that you don't want to go to an institution where you have to declare your major before you ever start classes. A better fit for you might be to go to an institution where you've got time to try and take courses in all different subjects that you might be interested in, to kind of figure out, what is going to be the best major for you. And then also another factor is a lot of times you don't necessarily automatically get accepted into a major that you're interested in. Some majors are more competitive than others, so it's good to have a couple of different options that you might be interested in for studying in case you don't get admitted into a major that's your top choice. It's good to have a variety of options. And then it's also good to just, if you know what you want to study, to really research the institutions that offer that major, because sometimes you might go to a large school where that's a large major, and you might not have the hands-on experience or kind of smaller classroom environment that you're hoping for. So these are all things to look at as far as when you're thinking about what you actually want to study and major in, as far as making sure that the schools that you're looking at offer those majors, but also kind of looking at what flexibility comes with that and what are the program specifics at that school specifically. Another thing that I think students kind of tend to overlook sometimes is, it's important to like the location of where you're going to go to school. You're going to be there most times at least 4 years, possibly even longer if you stay there for graduate school, or if you need to take longer for your undergraduate studies. And so it's important to know, do you like cold weather? If you don't like cold weather, you don't want to go to a northern state school where you're going to have lots of snow, lots of cold weather. Same thing if you hate hot weather. If you're coming from a hot climate and you want a colder climate, then you wouldn't want to go to the southern state schools. So this is a factor, even though it seems like a simple one, it's overlooked sometimes, and it's important to think about because you don't want to live somewhere that you're just not comfortable for 4 years. Another big one, obviously, is can you afford to attend the schools that you're considering, and what scholarship opportunities are there? It is very difficult for international students to find huge scholarships in the United States. A lot of times the scholarships for international students are much more limited because financial aid is not an option. And if you're not a US citizen, that really limits the pool of scholarships available. So it's important to look at the actual cost of attendance of the schools that you're attending. Some schools, the cost of attendance might be significantly higher, but they might have some bigger scholarships to supplement that. Whereas some schools, the cost might not be as high, but they might not have as many scholarships. For instance, most public institutions don't have large scholarships necessarily for international students. However, they're not as expensive as a lot of private institutions with larger scholarships. So in other words, if you apply to a private school and they offer you a huge scholarship, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're paying any less than you would be paying at a public institution. That might be a better fit. So it's important to kind of weigh all of those options as far as the cost of attendance and to look at what scholarships are available before you apply to institutions. I think one thing that's hard a lot of times is international students just apply to tons of schools, which is great, but it's a process to go through the whole application process. So if you apply to a school that you have, it's just not realistic financially, it's a lot of time and effort on your part to go through that whole admissions process and then not have it work out because there's not like a magic full ride scholarship at the end that I think a lot of students think might happen. It's important to really do that research up front. And with the visa process for international students, you also have to be able to show that you can afford at least one full academic year at a US institution. And so you have to be able to show that amount of money sitting in a bank account. So for instance, that might be like 60,000 US dollars that you have to have readily available in a US bank account, which you might have. That it can be from a sponsor such as your parents. So that might not be an option for you. But a lot of times that's a big barrier for international students because they apply and get admitted to a school and then they just don't have the funding to be able to show that they can afford at least one full year, even with a sponsor, in order to get the visa process. So it's good to kind of think about all those things and research those areas up front, just because it'll save you time and it'll kind of help you narrow down looking at schools that are going to be the best fit for you financially and just personally. And then also think about the accessibility of a nearby airport. How easy is it going to be for you to get to the school that you're going to? Do you need to have a car when you get to the airport to get to the school? Is it far away from an airport? Or is it easy for you to take a taxi? Does the school offer pickup for international students? A lot of schools do offer kind of pickup options for international students, particularly at the beginning of each semester. So those are things to factor about as kind of looking at how easy is it for you to actually get to the school that you're looking at. And then one thing else about cost, not so much the cost of the school, but just looking at the cost of living as far as the schools of where you're looking at going. For example, schools in big cities, the cost of living there is going to be much higher than kind of more rural schools or suburban schools. And then different states, the cost of living is much higher. For example, the cost of living in New York City is much higher than North Carolina. It's much higher than like California. California is definitely high cost of living. So it's important to kind of look at those factors as well that aren't necessarily going to be factored in with your cost of attendance at the school, but they're going to be factored in with just your day-to-day living expenses. And then campus life and culture. So this is something that's important to think about too when you're looking at different schools that you might be interested in. So the size of a school, as I mentioned, with the thousands of universities in the United States, they vary from a few hundred students to 60,000 students. I mean, it is very, very diverse as far as how large and small the schools are. So it's good for you to get an understanding of what you're going to be comfortable with. If you don't want to be in a classroom with 500 students, you don't want to go to a school where that's going to be the normal. You might want a more mid-sized school where you have a classroom size of 50 to 100 students, or you might want that kind of small classroom environment where you really can work closely with your professors and kind of be in an environment where you can know all the students in your classes. Another big part of the culture at U.S. universities is the athletics. Not every university has a huge football program. So if that's something that you've kind of idealized as far as part of the American kind of school experience, you'd want to make sure you go to a school that has a big athletic program or that's a big part of the culture and kind of research that up front. Another big factor is our international students typically at UNC Wilmington love to get to know all the other international students kind of right away, as well as a lot of American students. So it's good to research, do the schools that you're looking at have an international student population? Are there support services for them? What kind of involvement opportunities are there for international students? And then again, just about the location. Do you want that more kind of city urban experience? Or do you want more kind of a small town countryside feel? Very different cultures come with the location as well. And then just other involvement opportunities. Are there lots of clubs and organizations at the schools that you're looking at that interest you, that you want to be a part of? That's a great way to get to know other students. So it's important to kind of factor in all of those things as well. And then kind of lastly, as far as talking about best fit, just some tips on narrowing it down. I recommend that you sort of make a list of, say, your top 5 priorities or so of what you're looking at in institutions. That might be like your major, your cost of attendance. Is there a specific club that you want to be a part of? Is there a big athletic program? Whatever it may be, kind of list that out so you can sort of narrow down, okay, what do I really have to have at the institutions that I'm looking at? Second thing, try to look beyond the rankings. I think this is a challenging thing sometimes for parents in particular with US universities, because a lot of times you just kind of get publications on, what are the top 20 or top 50 rankings. There's a lot of misinformation with rankings in US universities just because there's so many universities with so many great programs. You might be overlooking a university that has an exceptional program for your student that might not be in the top 10 in the US, but would be a much better fit for them. So I would take rankings, certainly look at them, but maybe take some of them with a grain of salt. Just don't put so much weight on the rankings, just because that can really kind of blind out some other universities that are wonderful as well. And then of course, discuss all of the options with your family so that everyone has input. This is a big family decision, especially if your family is kind of financing your studies, and just for them to know, where you're going to be for 4 years. It's a very big transition for international students, so it's good to have kind of everyone that's involved get their input as far as where you're looking at studying. And then, if at all possible, try to make a trip to the U.S. to visit campuses. I think, visiting campus and setting foot in the place that you're looking at studying and really getting a feel for it. There's no other trade for getting that really in-person experience. However, a lot of times that's obviously not realistic, just with how much it is to travel, bringing your family, how far it is, all of those factors. So at the very least, do a virtual tour of the campus. Most universities have a virtual tour that you can access. And then set up a meeting with an admissions counselor or a current student. That's very easy to do, especially now in this day and world. It's much more common to have like a Zoom meeting with an admissions counselor to kind of talk about your interests. What are they looking for? All of those factors. And then a lot of schools have programs where they can connect you as a prospective student to a current student, even a current international student, perhaps from your home country. And that you can talk to a student and kind of really get their input as far as what it's like to be a student at that university. So I'd say at the very least, make those efforts for schools that you're seriously considering, because having that personal connection really can make kind of all the difference as far as how you feel about whether or not you want to go to the schools that you've been admitted to. Okay, so I know I've had some questions pop up, which is great. Again, I promise I will get to those at the end here. Now I'm just going to go into an overview of the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, which again is where I'm located. So to start off, I talked about location as far as best fit. So UNC Wilmington, we're in kind of a mid-sized city, not a big city at all, nothing like New York or LA or anything like that. So if you're looking for that huge city environment, you know, that's not what you're going to find with us. So that's a good thing to think about. What you will find with us is that we are located on the coast. So we are in a gorgeous location. It's a warm, mild climate. We have various beaches close to campus, one that students can bike to campus from, Wrightsville Beach, which is one of the most beautiful beaches in the country. We have a big historic district with vibrant culture and arts, film. We have a lot of movies that are filmed in Wilmington. And then just campus itself is very beautiful. It's a very kind of large campus, lots of trees. You'll see some more pictures of that in a minute. This is kind of a picture of our historical area downtown. We're located right on the Cape Fear River. So it's a very quaint, you know, kind of picturesque area to live. Lots of restaurants and parks and festivals and events. And just very a diverse area that has a lot to offer between the beaches and the historical area. And the college campus is kind of right in the middle of all of that. As far as academics, so for us, we're kind of a mid-sized institution. So we have about 16,000 students, which that might sound really large, but that's kind of what a mid-sized institution is for the United States. We have over 640 international students. They come from over 50 different countries, so it's a very diverse global population. A lot of students from India, both undergraduate and graduate level. And then we have 55 different bachelor programs, 35 master, and 4 doctoral. And then our kind of class size is smaller. So we have about 20 students per class. We only allow professors to teach. So that's something to think about too. A lot of larger institutions will allow what's called TAs, which are teaching assistants, which are graduate students that teach the kind of larger introductory classes to undergraduate students. We don't allow that. We only allow professors to teach the classes. So you can sort of have that one-on-one kind of professor-student relationship that you can partner with research with your professors or just really get to know them. And then campus, as I mentioned, is quite large. It's over 660 acres, lots of different buildings. This is some photos of campus. These are just a few kind of popular majors I've highlighted here. Again, we have over 55. So this link has a list to all of them. But business is certainly a popular one for international students. There's lots of concentrations within that, such as international business, entrepreneurship. We also have one of the country's first coastal engineering programs. That's a very kind of niche engineering program with our coastal environment that we're able to offer. So if you live in a coastal area or would like to live in a coastal area, that program could be a great fit for you if you're looking to go into engineering. Just about managing and kind of building coastal infrastructure and coastal environments. As I mentioned, lots of movies and TV shows are filmed here. So we have a great film program. It covers everything from production, directing, screenwriting, cinematography, kind of all the facets of the film industry. Computer science is a very popular one for our international students, both at a undergraduate and graduate level. We have lots of students from India that are in that program. There's some very unique parts of that program. One part of it is that we have a partnership with the FBI, which helps use digital technology to identify criminals, and that is managed through the computer science program that students get to work with that. Our sort of flagship biggest program for all of our students is marine biology. Being on the coast, we have a very extensive marine biology program in biology that goes up to a PhD level. We have a center that's on the Intercoastal Waterway where we have lots of boats and research labs. So it's a very hands-on kind of top tier program. It's in the top 5 marine biology programs in the country. Communication studies is a popular one, creative writing, education. Tourism management is also a popular one for international students. If you're looking to kind of go into the tourism industry, that could be a good option for you. And then you can also double major with us. You can do a major and a minor. For example, if you want to open your own hotel, you might do a double major in business and tourism management. So there's a lot of different kind of flexible options that you can sort of test out to find out what's going to be the best area of study for you. So applied learning, this is sort of what the teaching style is at UNCW, this term applied learning. It means that essentially we want to get students outside of the classroom, so beyond the kind of textbooks and classroom environment. So for every major in some capacity, you're going to have to engage in learning opportunities through either research with your professors, you might want to study abroad somewhere, or do an internship or some type of service learning. And for the internships, our International Student Office provides extensive advising on kind of what work opportunities you can do with the student visa. So we provide a lot of workshops and training on that for international students so that you can do an internship during your studies and make sure that you kind of follow all of the visa guidelines with that. As far as the admissions process, so for undergraduate admissions, the fall 2021 and spring 2021 applications are now open. You can access those online. You can go through the Common App or C-Level. Most popular is Common App, just especially if you're applying to multiple schools. There's a $80 US application fee that you pay online when you apply. We'll need all of your official transcripts from high school translated to English. The minimum GPA for the state of North Carolina requirement is a 2.5, and that's on a US 4.0 scale. So we do convert that for you. The average admitted GPA is around a 3.8, but the very minimum is a 2.5. There is an essay and short answer question that you can do on the application. We love to see any kind of extracurriculars that you've been a part of. So that could be anything that you're passionate about. It might be sports, it might be a music club, you might have had a job, whatever it might be. That's what we like to see there. Proof of English proficiency, which I'll talk about more on the next slide. And then I don't think this would apply to any students here, but just in case, if you decide to maybe do a year of study in college in India, or you go to a US community college for a year, there's always opportunities to transfer college credit to us. Or if you're at a high school that has maybe IB or AP programs, like an international or an American school, you can transfer college credit through those as well. As far as the deadlines, for fall, the deadline is April 1st, so 2021. But I encourage students, if they're looking at applying, the sooner the better, just because you'll get a decision sooner and you can start that visa process and kind of really research if you want to attend here. So the sooner you apply, the better. And then October 15th is the deadline for spring 2021. And then proof of English proficiency that I mentioned. So we have a variety of options that we accept. We can do the TOEFL of a 71 or higher, the IELTS of a 6.0 or higher. Duolingo is certainly one that we've been accepting a lot lately, just with the accessibility of students to take that online from their house. So we are happy to accept that. The minimum score for that is 95. The Pearson Test of English, we are SAT, ACT optional, so you do not have to provide an SAT or ACT score for our admissions process. However, if you've already taken that and you've got a 490 or higher on the reading and writing section of the SAT or 20 or higher on the reading section of the ACT, you don't also need to provide proof of English proficiency in the form of like a TOEFL. So we just need kind of one of these options. If you're not where you need to be yet for your English, we certainly can take you through our English language program first with conditional admission. And then once you meet the level 4 there, then you can start into a degree program. Graduate studies, I'm not going to go in depth with this since this is an undergraduate audience, but just to mention that we do have a lot of international students that come here for a bachelor's degree and stay on for a graduate program. So this is just kind of a snapshot of some of their basic requirements as well. And then cost of attendance and scholarships. So the undergraduate expenses here, this total number of about $39,000, that's kind of the total cost of attendance that you should expect to have per academic year. So like a fall and spring semester. Now, some of these are flexible. For example, this transportation estimate of about $1,800 US. If you don't have a car on campus, which most international students don't, and you don't need to have a car on campus to be able to access everything you need, then you're probably not going to have this cost. The kind of set in stone cost here are the tuition and fees. So about $21,000 that you definitely have to pay for tuition and fees. That does change slightly year to year, but not significantly, usually just by a couple $100 or so. But the total amount, that $39,000, that is what you have to be able to show in order to get your student visa. So you have to have that amount, factoring out any scholarships that you might receive, sitting in a bank account from your sponsor or yourself in order to kind of move through the student visa process. So scholarships. So as I mentioned earlier, we're a public institution. So that means our costs are considered reasonable for US universities. However, we don't have a ton of large scholarships. So again, it's about that balance. You know, private schools typically are going to have larger scholarships, but their costs are going to be much higher. So they all kind of even out a little bit with that. So the one big scholarship we do have is based on if you have taken an SAT, which again is not required for international students, but if you've taken it and you performed really well on it, you got a 1,300 or higher, we'll give you $20,000 split up into 4 years. So that's $5,000 off your tuition per year for the 4-year undergraduate degree program. We also have an incoming student award based on your GPA. If you have a GPA of 3.5 or higher, that's on a US 4.0 scale. And again, we convert that for you. We automatically give you $2,000 for your first year of attendance. So $1,000 for each semester your first year. And then we also have a Global Student Ambassador Program, which this is a great opportunity to connect with international students. If you apply and you're admitted to UNCW, you're automatically going to be connected with one of our global ambassadors, who's another current international student at UNCW now. So they kind of reach out to you after you've been admitted to help you with any questions you have, or just serve as kind of a friend before you ever arrive on campus. And so that program students can apply for after they've been here for at least a semester. And if you're accepted into that program, you'll get $2,000 per year for each year that you participate. So it's kind of a great involvement opportunity, but also a scholarship as well. So campus life and student support services. So in my office, the Office of International Students and Scholars, we are kind of the hub for all international students' needs. We provide the immigration advising that I mentioned. So that's from the point of admission all the way through after you graduate, if you're staying in the United States, to say work on OPT, which is a program where you can stay and work in the United States for a year after you graduate. We provide international student orientation for each semester. We have a community host family program. So it's a local family that you can be paired with, not a live-in program, but just a program that you can, go to dinner with the family, stay with them occasionally, kind of whatever level of support you want from them is available through that option. We have the student mentor program that I mentioned, where you're paired with an international student. And we also have one that you're paired with an American student before you arrive. So that might mean that they pick you up at the airport or help you go shopping for stuff for your dorm room, whatever it might be. They're just kind of a friend to help you get settled when you arrive on campus. We do lots of events and trips. locally, as well as far trips. We usually go to New York City, normally each fall semester. Obviously not this semester, but normally we do take big trips in the fall. Global Cafe is kind of a monthly sort of social that we host for international and American students to come together and kind of talk about different cultural topics. It's very educational and a social event. Lots of local excursions, and then we have some big community events as well. So an intercultural festival every fall. We do a traditional Thanksgiving dinner. That's a kind of an American tradition where we have a local family that usually hosts about 150 international students for kind of a big Thanksgiving meal. So that's a really fun one also. And then let's see here. So the English, oh, there we go. Then more on kind of the campus life and recreation. So we are considered a Division I school. So that's a large athletic program school. The Division I is the biggest division in the NCAA. We have over 19 different Division I athletics teams. Our biggest one is basketball. Soccer, tennis, and baseball are also pretty popular as well. And then we have over 60 intramural sports and clubs. So you might not play for kind of one of the very serious Division I teams, but you can definitely participate in an intramural club or just a club level, which is a little bit more competitive. And there's over 60 options for that. So lots of different sports you can be involved with. And then we have a lot of kind of adventure programs to get students out in the coastal area where we live. So we have kayaking, we have surfing clinics if you want to learn to surf, camping trips that we take to kind of local barrier islands here that's very beautiful. And then we have over 260 different clubs and organizations that you can be a part of. So there's never a reason for you to be bored if you want to get involved. It's very easy to kind of get involved right the moment you step on campus. And then we have some big traditions too. One being the Involvement Carnival, where you get to kind of walk around at the beginning of the fall semester and talk to all of those 260 clubs and organizations to learn about what they offer and what they're about, so that you can get a feel for, what you might want to be involved in. And then other kind of student resource centers that we have. These are just a few of different kind of diversity programs that we offer that you can be a part of, that are available to all students, but are kind of hubs on campus for different diverse groups and organizations. So they're centers, they're physical centers that are located on campus that you can access. And then as far as academic support and career support, we have a university learning center where there's free tutoring, especially if English is not your first language. And even though you might have what you need to get admitted, you might still have some learning curves with just writing on maybe the APA format or whatever the format the teachers are requiring you to write with. You can get help with that at the Writing Center, or just general studies and skills support. That's very accessible to all students. And then the Career Center, we do a lot of work with the Career Center specifically for international students, to help you find internships that meet the visa regulations, to help you find jobs after you graduate, whether it's in the United States for the 1-year option or anywhere around the world. They have lots of resources to help students go directly into work when they finish school. We have job and internship fairs on campus. And then we have kind of a job hub itself, which has at least over 5,000 jobs and internships that students have access to view at any point once they start at UNCW. And then safety, health, and wellness, obviously very important, especially this day and age. We have a very safe campus. Wilmington in general is a very safe place to live, but the campus itself has a fully functioning police department on campus, available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So always present and very accessible. We have a student health center on campus. So that's a doctor's office on campus and a pharmacy that's accessible to students. And then we have other kind of medical, stress management, and nutritional services. And then many resources for test anxiety, counseling, personal development, all of those areas to kind of take care of your whole self are accessible to you on campus. And then housing and dining. So housing is only required for incoming freshmen. However, you can live on campus all 4 years if you want. So it's definitely an option to stay on campus all 4 years. There's lots of housing, different choices that you can have, from an apartment where you have your own room and bathroom, to more freshmen is kind of traditional where you share a room with one other person and then share a bathroom. But all the residence halls are relatively new or recently renovated. Some of them have their own pools and recreation areas. So they're very nice, lots of study spaces. A lot of them have their own kind of little grocery stores or little convenience stores so that you can shop and do your own cooking as well. Even though campus dining is very accessible all over campus, there's over 15 different dining halls, with all different kind of, options for all different cuisines, vegetarian, halal, all those choices. And then, yeah, more on campus dining here, as I mentioned, over 15 dining halls. So lots of different options to eat on campus, as well as you'll have kitchens in your residence halls that you can cook. And then, okay, so I promised I would save plenty of time for questions, and I've seen a lot of questions popping up, which is great. So let me just open the Q&A here, and I'll kind of start at the top. And then here is just the general contact for my office if you have follow-up questions, but let me just go through there. Okay, so what kind of career-related topics and points we should be looking out for when selecting a university? So that's a good question. I think one thing, like I just talked about our career center, when you're looking at a university in general, definitely look at the university's career center and just see how they help students kind of find different jobs. The one resource we have, I know of, that's very helpful is we have what can I do with a major in? And it's a website where you can select the major that you're thinking about studying, and then it lists kind of hundreds of jobs related to that major. So that's a great way to kind of get an idea of, okay, how do I translate my academic major into an actual career? So most career centers at whatever university you're looking at could kind of provide further guidance on that. So I'd say definitely look into it closer. How can we learn about the classroom learning environment and personalized learning? So specific to UNCW, we have that applied learning style that I mentioned. So we have a pretty extensive website as far as examples of applied learning, whether it's been research projects or internships or study abroad, whatever it may be, that students have taken through the applied learning initiative. So that's how you can kind of find out more about it. For us, every university sort of has a type of learning style, so it really depends on kind of what they call it, but you should be able to find more information on that under their academic section. Everything from what's your average class size, you know, how closely can you work with the professor, that type of information should be accessible in their academic section most of the time. What is the city of Wilmington like, and how is the campus life at UNC Wilmington? So obviously I'm biased because I've been here a long time, but Wilmington itself is just a very lovely, friendly beach town, but it also has a lot of culture. As I mentioned, we've got that big historic district that has a lot of galleries, shopping, restaurants, music venues that students love to kind of participate in. We also work a lot with the community as far as service learning and getting students to volunteer in our community so that they're kind of an active part of Wilmington's sort of heart and soul and thriving and growing with Wilmington itself. And then campus life at UNC Wilmington, I might have kind of touched on this after this question, but like I said, over 260 different clubs and organizations, big athletic programs. So it's not too big, it's not too small. So you know, have the opportunity to get to know people, new people all the time, but see people you know as well. So it's a great kind of environment where you don't feel overwhelmed by the size, but it's definitely a thriving kind of large campus community. Would there be a way for students to learn about the popular majors and minors pursued by students at the undergraduate level? Yeah, so I think I kind of touched on that a little bit, but certainly, yeah, you can visit our academic section, and all of the majors have different websites. So if there's specific ones that you're looking for, I'd recommend visiting that major's website, and you can get a feel for how many students are in that major, what are some of the fun parts of that major. That type of area can definitely be found on the website as well, or you can email me and I can send you kind of more detailed contact information. Will UNCW offer online or in-person classes for this year and next year? So as of right now, our classes started last week and we're doing a hybrid model. So about 30% of classes are in person currently, with significantly reduced class sizes to maintain, very strong social distancing. Masks are required all over campus and in classes specifically. We don't know what 2021 looks like yet. I don't think anywhere in the world really knows that. So that's a continuously evolving situation, just like it is around the world. We do have a COVID-19 website just on our main website that you can access for the latest updates. We are prepared to pivot at any moment if needed, depending on the cases of COVID-19, to go fully online if we need to for this semester. So we are prepared for that. Hopefully we won't have to. We have not had to yet, but we've only been in classes for 1 week, so it's too early to know. But basically we're prepared for all scenarios of doing fully in person, doing the hybrid model like we're doing now, or going back to fully online like we had to last spring. So we'll just see and hope for the best. Wilmington itself has not been impacted significantly by COVID-19 just because we're not a big city. So we don't have tons and tons of cases. However, it's still very serious here like it is everywhere. So we're being very cautious about how the university is handling that. Can you please share again the number of Indian undergraduate students at UNC Wilmington? So we have 640 international students in general. I'd say the population from India is probably maybe 20 to 30 or so. I don't know that off the top of my head. Can certainly get you in touch with one of our students from India if you want to email us, and they would have more information about that. So we can definitely connect you with any of the Indian students if you wish. When can we declare ourselves as a double major? If we select computer science and communication, would this increase the cost and duration of degree? So typically students declare their major their sophomore year or declare a double major. It shouldn't cost you more. It just depends on kind of how many classes you're willing to take each semester. So you might have to take like an additional class or two, which that could make you just be on track for the same 4 years. If you need more time, then it'll cost you more just to take more time if you need extra semester or whatever it may be to finish both of those degrees. Can students apply as undeclared if we are undecided on our majors? Yes, you can apply as undecided. And how would the admissions process work? And will we be at a competitive disadvantage for admissions and scholarships? No. So for UNC Wilmington specifically, we do not look at majors in our admissions decisions because students don't declare until they're a sophomore. So it's completely fine if you select a major or if you don't. That's not something that's factored in with us for the admissions decisions for the undergraduate level. Is the SAT optional and is it required for scholarships? It is optional. I mentioned that probably after this question. It's only required for the one SAT scholarship that I mentioned, which is up to $5,000 per year. But again, it's not required for admission. I am a 12th grade student. Would the TOEFL or IELTS be optional for us due to our international curriculum of studies? No, that's not optional. You must submit a TOEFL, IELTS, or Duolingo for proof of English proficiency. If you're in a full IB program and you're getting an IB certificate, then we can discuss that. But that's the only time that we're sometimes flexible with that English proficiency requirement. But again, the Duolingo, again, TOEFL or IELTS is great too, but Duolingo is so accessible just because you can do it online from your house and it doesn't take a ton of time, that we're still requiring that for all students just because it's so accessible. Can you please go over the cost of attendance and scholarships, as it was a bit hard for me to understand? So yeah, I'll go back to that slide here. Let's see. So the cost of attendance, just kind of like I covered, this breakdown here, this tuition and fees, that's what's definitely set in stone for UNC Wilmington. That's what you're gonna have to pay at least for each academic year. All of these costs are sort of the highest estimates that students typically have per academic year. So for example, meals, it might not be that much or it might be more. It just depends on how many meals you need. But this total amount here, because this is the total that our Office of Scholarships and Financial Aid posts every year, this total amount is what the Department of Homeland Security requires you to show proof of funding for in order to get your visa. Can international students start their own clubs? Yes. Any student can start their own club. They have a process in place for that, and it's definitely a wonderful option if you have a club that you want to start that's on campus. For example, I had a student from Turkey, Turkish student club. That was really cool. What are your application deadlines, and when do you start the application process for next year? So I think I answered this, but October 15th is the spring deadline. April 1st is the fall deadline, but the sooner the better to apply is always recommended. And our applications are already open for this year, so you can apply today if you're interested. Can you please share details on campus safety? So yes, I think I covered this as well. But yes, we have a fully police force on campus, very low crime rate. You can see the crime report on our website as well. The biggest crime thing that happens in Wilmington is sometimes bikes get stolen, but most of the time that's just an honest mistake where a student thought their bike was somebody else's and took it, and then they return it. So that's usually the biggest crime we have on campus. It's a very safe, comfortable place. And if you say you're walking from the library late at night to your dorm and you don't feel comfortable, you can easily call campus police and they'll escort you to your dorm. So anytime that you feel you just want a little extra support, our campus police is there to help you with that. I would also like to learn how housing and meal plans work for international students. So they're the same for all students. You can kind of apply to which dorm that you're most interested in living in for your freshman year. You can see that on the website, all the dorm options that are available, and kind of research each one and then put your top pick. And usually students are assigned to their top pick, but you'll have a couple options that you'll have to list. And then meal plans, there's a couple options as well. So if you cook for yourself a lot, you can select a low meal plan. Or if you're not going to cook at all, you can select a meal plan that has all of your meals. So it's kind of just flexible as far as what meets your needs. And then looks like last question here. How many recommended minors should a student pursue? I would recommend not more than one. I think a major and a minor is a pretty good course load, or just a major itself, but I wouldn't do more than one minor. You can, but it really obviously depends on what the student's interested in and how they feel they can be successful, but usually it's common for just one major and one minor. And when are we required to file submission of our minor choice? Typically the sophomore year is when all of that happens. Can the minor be which is different from major, such as engineering, pursuing a student business minor? Yep, it can definitely be different. For example, if you're majoring in engineering, but you want to know how to kind of start your own company, you might minor in entrepreneurship. So that's definitely an option. Okay, I have a couple more questions here. Why are the I-20 costs different from the actual cost of attendance? So again, I just talked on that, but they're not different from the total cost of attendance. That total cost is $39,415. That just might fluctuate based on your personal preferences, but we have no way of knowing at the time of admission when you start the visa process if you're not going to spend $4,000 on meals. So this total cost of attendance is the hard number that we have to go by for the Department of Homeland Security purposes for you to get your visa before you ever arrive on campus. That's why that number is kind of set in stone and isn't flexible. Can you please share more information about your recommendation letter and essay requirements? So recommendation letters are not required for the admissions process. You're welcome to submit them if you want. They certainly won't hurt, but they certainly are not something that's a big factor in our admissions decisions. And then the essay, you have several prompts that you can choose from. It's pretty common on all US applications. I think there's 4 or 5 prompts that you can choose from. And that we're just really looking to get to know you better, kind of outside the numbers. So we just want to kind of get a sense of, for the short answer, to know why you're looking at UNCW specifically, to see that you've done some research on UNCW. And then for the main essay, we just want to get to know more about you through whatever prompt that you choose. If my grades are low but SAT score is high, will this help me? Because we are SAT, ACT optional, we're looking more at your grades and your GPA in our admissions decision. But yes, if you have the SAT score, that certainly won't hurt you. It'll certainly help you as far as how we factor it in with our admissions decision. But you're still going to have to meet our at least minimum GPA requirements with your grades. It wouldn't take that away from the GPA requirement. Okay, so I know we're almost done with time here. Are there any other questions that I have coming in?
Students, I'm going to wait for a minute or two. It's 6:21 p.m. local time. I'm just going to wait for a quick minute. before I begin my conclusions. And yeah, Ms. Jessie, yes, I was just going to say, can you go to the contact information so students can get in touch? I'll just wait here for a quick minute and then begin with my introductions. Thank
Yeah, and this contact information, just because most of us are still working remote right now, I'd say the best way to get in touch with us is email versus the phone. But you can email us, and you can also schedule a Zoom appointment as a follow-up if you want to meet one-on-one with me. I'd be happy to do that. So just send the email to this address.
Absolutely. And I think it's 622 students, parents, high school counselors. Thank you so much for making your students and parent body available this late in the evening. Of course, we know it's approaching 7 p.m. around India time. So we truly appreciate your kind time in helping us organize this session. Thank you once again to the 12th grade students for being so energetic and engageful. I just want to also have a note for the high school counselors that this session is recorded and will be shared with your schools in the next 24 hours or so. So we kindly request you to please share the recording of this session with other students who are not able to attend, so that, you know, if there are other interested students who are interested in the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, they can definitely learn more information about the institution, as well as get in touch with directly with Mrs. Jessie Heim. Having said that, Mrs. Jessie Heim, thank you so much for your kind time and support. As I mentioned, I know it's very early in the morning out there. I'm sure you have a very hectic schedule with classes beginning now. So thank you so much for taking your kind time to host this session with the 12th graders, and of course your parents and the high school counselors. I'm sure this many of the conversations will continue well past the session, and which is what we all wanted, so that the 12th graders and their parents and counselors can be in direct contact with you. We truly appreciate your kind time. We'll also be sharing a link of the recorded session with you, and truly appreciate and look forward to keeping in touch with you, and of course look forward to keeping in touch with the high school counselors as well. And wish you all a wonderful evening, and of course a wonderful day to you, Miss Jessie, out there in the US.
Thank you again for having me, Kunal, and I appreciate everyone that attended today. It was great to have all your questions and presence.
Thank you so much, Miss Jessie. Wish you a wonderful day. Please take care, stay safe, and we look forward to keeping in touch with you, as I'm sure most of the counselors will do as well. Thank you once again. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.